A cold autumn morning in 2022 began with an unusual disturbance on a quiet road in Hudson Valley, New York. Four New York State police vehicles, without sirens, silently pulled up in front of a modest two-story house nestled among the trees along the edge of the forest. Neighbors peeked through their curtains as investigators in jackets with badges quickly fanned out and took positions around the property. Inside, Ethan Caldwell was preparing his morning coffee, a routine he had repeated almost every day since moving to the neighborhood years earlier. A rapid knock came at the door at 6:18 a.m. Ethan Caldwell, New York State Police. We have a warrant for your arrest in connection with the disappearance of Megan Carter in 2015. The officers later recounted that the man stood frozen for a few seconds as he set the mug down on the kitchen table. And behind that door lay a mystery that had stretched over 7 years, beginning on the night a 19-year-old college student left a bar in Tarrytown and vanished without a trace. Some names and details in this story have been changed to protect anonymity and privacy. Not all photographs are from the actual scene. Hudson Valley, New York, spring 2015. Along the Hudson River shoreline, small towns like Peekskill, Ossining, and Tarrytown stretch between low hills and busy riverside roads. April afternoons often began with soft sunlight reflecting on the water, and as night fell, lights from riverside restaurants and bars began to glow along the route running through these towns. In that area was Megan Carter, 19 years old, a sophomore at Westchester Community College. Megan lived in a small rented apartment in Peekskill with roommates, and usually commuted between school and work in her personal sedan. To cover tuition and living expenses, Megan worked part-time at a restaurant along the Hudson River, where she typically took afternoon and evening shifts. April 14, 2015, started like many other days. Megan went to the restaurant for her scheduled shift. The shift ended in the evening, and before leaving work, Megan texted her roommate that she planned to meet a new acquaintance named Ethan Caldwell. The two had been in contact for a few days prior and decided to meet in person that night. The meeting place was agreed upon as a restaurant in Ossining, not far from Peekskill, located along the Hudson River route. Restaurant security camera footage later confirmed that Megan arrived at the location and met Ethan Caldwell on the evening of April 14. After the meal, the two left the restaurant and continued south to the town of Tarrytown, where they stopped at a local bar. Images from the bar's security camera system show Megan and Ethan appearing in the bar area for a period before preparing to leave. Around 9 p.m., the entrance camera recorded the two leaving together. This was the last time Megan Carter was captured on camera at a public location. After that point, no further camera footage or witness accounts confirmed her presence at any other location in the Hudson Valley area. On the morning of April 15, 2015, Megan did not attend her scheduled classes at Westchester Community College. The instructor did not record her presence in the morning class. Megan's roommate began to take notice when she saw that Megan had not returned to the apartment overnight and was not responding to messages or calls. Megan's cell phone was not responding. Megan's family, upon being informed that she had not attended class and could not be reached, also tried calling her number multiple times but received no response. Through the morning and into the early afternoon, Megan's failure to appear at any familiar places caused growing concern among family and friends. By the afternoon of April 15, 2015, Megan Carter's family contacted the Peekskill Police Department to report that Megan had lost contact and her whereabouts were unknown. Local police received the information that Megan Carter might be missing and began taking the initial report from the family. A patrol officer was dispatched to the apartment where Megan lived in Peekskill to conduct an initial check. The officer met with Megan's roommate, who provided information about the last time she saw Megan leave the apartment the previous day to go to her shift at the Hudson River restaurant. According to the roommate, Megan left the apartment in the afternoon of April 14, carrying her phone, personal wallet, and car keys as usual. The officer conducted a check inside the apartment to determine whether Megan had returned during the night. The apartment showed no signs of disturbance, no indications of any incident having occurred there, and no signs that Megan had returned after leaving the previous afternoon. Some of Megan's personal items were still in the bedroom, including textbooks and daily toiletries, while the items she normally carried when going out were not present in the apartment. The patrol officer then checked the parking area of the apartment complex. The roommate confirmed that the sedan Megan usually drove had not been in its usual parking spot since the previous evening. This information was recorded in the initial report because it indicated that Megan had left her residence in her personal vehicle and had not returned. After completing the check at the residence, the patrol officer contacted the Peekskill Police Department Operations Center to report the situation. Based on the information from the family and the initial apartment check results, police decided to open an official missing person case for Megan Carter. During the process of opening the case, police began collecting Megan's basic personal information to aid in verification and search efforts. The file recorded Megan Carter, 19 years old, student at Westchester Community College, residing in Peekskill, New York. In addition to residence and student status information, police also noted the location of Megan's part-time job as a restaurant along the Hudson River, where she typically worked afternoon and evening shifts. Information about Megan's vehicle was included in the file, including the make of the sedan, color, and license plate number. Megan's cell phone number was also recorded for later use in checking communication data and device location. After completing the basic information section, officers continued to ask for details about Megan's schedule on the last day before losing contact. The roommate and family provided information that Megan had gone to her shift at the restaurant on April 14, 2015, and after finishing her shift in the evening, she had plans to meet a new acquaintance named Ethan Caldwell. According to the roommate, Megan had said she would have dinner with Ethan and might then stop by a bar in the area. This information was recorded in the initial report as the last known activities in Megan's schedule before losing contact. Police continued to ask about how Megan and Ethan knew each other when the two began communicating and details related to the meeting on the evening of April 14. Family and the roommate stated that Megan had mentioned Ethan in the days prior and said the two had exchanged phone messages before deciding to meet in person. Officers noted that the meeting location was a restaurant in Ossining and possibly a bar in Tarrytown afterward. All these details were entered into the initial investigation file to accurately determine the sequence of Megan's activities in the period before losing contact. From the initial collected information, Ethan Caldwell was identified as the last known person to have been with Megan Carter on the evening of April 14, 2015. Ethan's name, along with related details, were quickly recorded in the missing person file as an important lead to be verified in order to clarify Megan's final activities before losing contact. After completing the intake of the report and opening the initial file, Peekskill Police Department compiled all the data gathered from family, roommate, and the apartment check results to identify key factors related to her sudden loss of contact since the evening of April 14, 2015. As the initial picture of Megan's final hours began to take shape, investigators moved to the next step of the investigation, verifying the locations mentioned in that evening's schedule. According to information from family and roommate, Megan had planned to meet Ethan Caldwell for dinner at a restaurant in the town of Ossining, not far from Peekskill and located along the Hudson River route. An investigator, along with another officer, was assigned to this restaurant to verify Megan's presence that evening. Upon arrival, the investigators met with the restaurant manager and explained that they were conducting a check related to a missing person report. The manager confirmed that the establishment had continuously operating security cameras, including at the entrance, service counter, and several positions in the dining area. The investigators requested to review camera footage from the evening of April 14, 2015. During the time frame from early evening to around 9 p.m., the period believed to be when Megan and Ethan met there. The manager assisted with access to the video storage system, and the investigators began reviewing the recordings. The entrance camera showed Megan Carter arriving at the restaurant on the evening of April 14th. Footage captured Megan entering the main door of the restaurant and then moving into the dining area. Another video segment from the same time frame showed Ethan Caldwell also arriving at the restaurant and meeting Megan in the table area. The investigators paused at the clearest frames to confirm the identities of the two individuals in the video, comparing them to family-provided photos of Megan and previously recorded identifying information for Ethan Caldwell. After confirming the two in the footage, the investigators continued viewing the entire relevant portion of the video to determine the duration of their stay at the location. Dining area cameras recorded Megan and Ethan sitting at a table in the restaurant for a certain period. No unusual signs were noted in the video from this area. After completing the review of interior footage, the investigators moved to check entrance-exit cameras to determine when the two left the premises. The main door camera recorded Megan Carter and Ethan Caldwell leaving the restaurant together after finishing dinner. The investigators determined the departure time based on the timestamp displayed in the camera system. This time was recorded in the investigation file as the last time Megan was seen at the Ossining restaurant on the evening of April 14, 2015. The investigators backed up the relevant video segments from the restaurant's camera system for inclusion in the investigation file. In addition to collecting video, they also noted the camera layout diagram in the restaurant and the positions of recorded areas to ensure all necessary video data had been obtained. After completing the collection of camera data and confirming Megan Carter and Ethan Caldwell's presence at the Ossining restaurant on the evening of April 14th, the investigators recorded this as the first verified location in Megan's final schedule before losing contact. The time Megan and Ethan left the restaurant was entered into the investigation report as a key milestone in the sequence of events that evening, helping investigators determine the next time frame to be checked in order to continue reconstructing Megan Carter's full activities in the period before her family reported her missing. And Peekskill Police Department investigators continue to verify the next location in the schedule provided by Megan's family and roommate. According to initial information, after dinner, the two had moved to a bar in the town of Tarrytown. A team of investigators was sent to this location to check and collect security camera data. Upon arrival, the investigators met with the bar manager and informed him that they were conducting verification related to a missing person case. The manager confirmed that the premises had a security camera system operating in multiple areas, including the entrance, bar counter, and seating area. The investigators requested access to camera data from the evening of April 14, 2015, during the time frame from after 8 p.m. to around 10 p.m. The bar's video storage system was accessed, and the investigators began reviewing each recording segment. The entrance camera recorded Megan Carter and Ethan Caldwell entering the bar on the evening of April 14th, not long after they were confirmed to have left the Ossining restaurant. Images from the camera showed the two entering the interior of the bar and moving toward the bar counter. The investigators paused at multiple frames to confirm the identities of the two in the video, comparing them to family-provided images of Megan Carter and previously recorded identifying information for Ethan Caldwell. After confirming the two in the footage, the investigators continued reviewing interior bar video segments to determine the duration of Megan and Ethan's stay at the location. Bar counter area cameras recorded the two standing at the counter for a certain period before moving to a nearby table area. Some other video segments showed them appearing in the bar's game area with a group of other patrons for a short time. The investigators recorded all timestamps of Megan and Ethan's appearances in the camera system to accurately determine the period they were present at the location. After completing the review of interior bar footage, the investigators moved to review entrance/exit cameras to determine when the two left the bar. The exit camera recorded Megan Carter and Ethan Caldwell leaving the bar together around 9 p.m. on April 14, 2015. The departure time was determined based on the timestamp displayed in the camera system and was recorded in the investigation report. The investigators backed up all relevant video segments from the bar's camera system for storage as evidence in the file. In addition to collecting the video segments, the investigators also recorded the bar's camera layout diagram to ensure that every important angle had been checked and no area was overlooked during the data review process. After completing the review and backup of all images from the camera system, the investigators confirmed that Megan Carter and Ethan Caldwell had been present at the Tarrytown bar on the evening of April 14, 2015, and left the location together around 9 p.m. No video segment after that time recorded Megan appearing at any other public location in the area. Therefore, the time the two left the Tarrytown bar was recorded in the investigation file as the last time Megan Carter was confirmed to appear in security camera data before her family reported her missing to Peekskill Police Department. With the camera footage having confirmed the sequence of locations where Megan appeared that evening from the restaurant in Ossining to the bar in Tarrytown, the investigators moved to the next step of the investigation, clarifying what happened after Megan left the bar. To do this, the Peekskill Police Department decided to contact Ethan Caldwell directly, who had been identified as the last known person to have been with Megan Carter on the evening of April 14, 2015. Ethan's contact information had been collected earlier during the missing person file process based on details provided by Megan's family and roommate. An investigator called Ethan and requested that he come in to speak with police to provide information related to the evening he met Megan. Ethan agreed to cooperate and arrived at Peekskill Police Department headquarters the following day to speak with the investigators. In the investigative unit's office, Ethan Caldwell was asked to provide details about his and Megan's activities on the evening of April 14, 2015. The investigators began by asking Ethan to describe how he knew Megan and when the two began communicating. Ethan stated that he and Megan had recently become acquainted, and after a few phone and text exchanges, they decided to meet in person for dinner. According to Ethan's statement, the two met at a restaurant in Ossining, as confirmed by the camera data. Ethan said the evening started with dinner at the restaurant, and then the two proceeded together to a bar in Tarrytown to continue talking. When asked about the time they spent in the bar, Ethan stated that they stayed there for a period before deciding to leave. The investigators asked further questions about how the two left the bar and whether any argument or incident occurred between them during the evening. Ethan asserted that the meeting proceeded normally and no conflict took place. When asked for details about when the meeting ended, Ethan stated that after leaving the bar in Tarrytown, Megan returned to her own sedan and drove away by herself. According to Ethan, the two parted ways right in the parking area near the bar and each went in their own direction. Ethan said that after Megan left, he also left the area and returned to his home. The investigators continued asking Ethan whether he saw where Megan went after leaving the parking lot and whether he had any further contact with her after that evening. Ethan stated that he did not know where Megan went after leaving the bar and had no additional contact with her after they parted. During the interview, the investigators recorded Ethan Caldwell's entire statement, including the timelines he provided related to the evening of April 14. Ethan's statement was preliminarily compared with the camera data collected from the restaurant and bar to check for consistency of information. The investigators also asked Ethan to provide information about his current residence, his personal schedule that night, and the vehicle he used to meet Megan. Ethan answered the questions and provided the basic details requested by the investigators. After completing the session, Ethan Caldwell's statement was entered into the investigation file as the account from the last person confirmed to have met Megan Carter on the evening of April 14, 2015. The investigators noted that according to Ethan's statement, Megan Carter left the Tarrytown bar area in her own sedan after the meeting ended, and that since that time, Ethan had neither seen nor contacted Megan again. The Peekskill Police Department investigators moved to the next step in the investigation process by attempting to locate the vehicle Megan was using. Information about Megan's sedan had been recorded in the missing person file earlier, including the make of the car, color, and license plate number. Based on this information, police issued a vehicle lookout in the Hudson Valley area and surrounding regions. Notification about the vehicle was sent to patrol units in the area, local law enforcement agencies, and vehicle database systems to assist in identifying its location if the car appeared on the road. The investigators also conducted checks of public parking lots, parking areas near shopping centers, and major roads in the Peekskill, Ossining, and Tarrytown areas to determine whether Megan's vehicle had been abandoned at any location. In parallel with issuing the lookout, the investigative team began collecting data from traffic camera systems along major roads throughout Hudson Valley. Priority roads for review included those directly connecting Ossining, Tarrytown, and Peekskill, as well as major routes leading out of the area. The investigators contacted local transportation authorities and requested access to camera data covering the period from the evening of April 14 through the early morning of April 15, 2015. Video segments from the traffic cameras were copied and transferred to the investigative unit for analysis. The review of camera data was conducted segment by segment to search for images of a sedan matching the description of Megan Carter's vehicle. The investigators focused on the time frames immediately after Megan and Ethan were recorded leaving the Tarrytown bar, as this was the time believed to be when Megan returned to her car and drove away according to Ethan Caldwell's statement. Each camera along the major roads was checked to determine whether the vehicle appeared in the frames and, if so, to identify the direction of travel. During this process, the investigators noted the appearance times of vehicles with similar characteristics to Megan's sedan, then compared license plates or other identifying details to confirm the exact vehicle. In addition to collecting video from the city's traffic camera systems, the investigators also contacted several businesses and gas stations along the major roads to inquire whether their private security cameras might have captured images of a similar vehicle during that time period. The goal of collecting and reviewing the camera data was to determine the travel route of the sedan after Megan left the bar, while also establishing whether the vehicle left the Hudson Valley area or stopped at some location within the region. All video segments collected from traffic cameras and related sources were stored in the investigation file and reviewed multiple times to ensure no relevant images of Megan Carter's vehicle were overlooked. The process of tracking Megan's vehicle became a critical step in determining what happened after she left the Tarrytown bar on the evening of April 14, 2015, and in clarifying the direction of travel of the sedan she was believed to have used after parting from Ethan Caldwell. While Peekskill Police Department investigators continued to collect and review traffic camera data along major roads throughout Hudson Valley to determine the travel route of the sedan Megan Carter used on the evening of April 14, 2015, New information was forwarded to the investigative unit from Area Traffic Patrol Forces. A patrol officer on duty along a section of the Bronx River Parkway reported discovering an abandoned vehicle on the roadside in a condition showing signs of fire. Initial information about the vehicle was relayed to the operations center, including a preliminary description of the make, color, and extent of damage to the vehicle. When this information reached the team handling Megan Carter's missing person case, the investigators noticed that the vehicle description matched many points with the sedan previously entered into the missing person file. A team of investigators was dispatched to the Bronx River Parkway to examine the scene and verify whether the abandoned vehicle was Megan Carter's. Upon arrival, the investigators observed the sedan parked partially off the roadway in an area with low nighttime traffic. The exterior of the vehicle showed clear signs of fire, particularly in the front compartment and along part of the body. The acrid smell of burned material still lingered around the car. The investigators approached the vehicle and checked the license plate attached to the rear. The plate matched the vehicle information for Megan Carter recorded in the missing person file. This confirmation indicated that the vehicle discovered on the Bronx River Parkway was indeed Megan's personal vehicle. After identifying the vehicle, officers established a control perimeter around the area to protect the scene. Crime scene tape was set up to prevent vehicles and pedestrians from approaching too closely to the area under examination. The investigators began documenting the scene by taking photographs from multiple angles, including overall views of the vehicle's position on the roadway, the distance from the vehicle to the road edge, and the fire damage on the body. Initial observations showed that most of the fire damage was concentrated at the front of the vehicle and extended along part of the side body. Some areas of paint had been scorched and deformed due to heat. The vehicle doors were closed, and there were no signs indicating a severe collision prior to the fire. The investigative team continued to examine the roadway surface around the vehicle in search of related evidence. Several small burn marks were noted on the asphalt surface near the front wheels. The investigators noted the positions of these marks and photographed them for the scene file. In addition, they checked the roadside and nearby grassy areas to determine whether any items had been left behind that might be related to starting the fire. Initial observations suggested that the fire did not originate from a typical mechanical failure of the vehicle and was more likely related to intentional ignition after the vehicle was abandoned at this location. To ensure the examination followed proper procedure, the investigators contacted the local fire investigation unit for assistance in assessing the scene. While awaiting the arrival of the specialized team, officers continued to secure the area around the vehicle and prevent anyone from approaching it. Information about the discovery of Megan Carter's sedan in a burned condition was updated in the Peekskill Police Department investigation file. Finding the vehicle on the Bronx River Parkway provided a new data point in determining what happened after Megan Carter left the Tarrytown bar on the evening of April 14, 2015. Once Megan Carter's sedan was confirmed at the scene on the Bronx River Parkway and the surrounding area had been cordoned off to preserve evidence, Peekskill Police Department contacted the Fire Investigation Unit to conduct a specialized examination of the burned vehicle. A fire investigator from the area's Arson Investigation Division was dispatched to the scene to determine the cause of the vehicle's fire. Upon arrival, the fire investigator began with an overall observation of the scene, including the vehicle's position, the extent of fire damage, and traces on the surrounding road surface. The investigators had previously photographed the scene and recorded the vehicle's position, so the fire investigator could cross-reference initial details before proceeding with a more detailed examination. The inspection followed standard protocol for vehicles suspected of being intentionally set on fire. The fire investigator observed the areas with the most intense fire damage on the body to identify the point of origin of the blaze. The front portion of the sedan and part of the engine compartment showed more severe fire damage compared to other areas. Some metal components were deformed due to heat, while plastic parts and interior materials were scorched or melted. The fire investigator noted that the degree and distribution of the fire damage did not fully align with a typical mechanical failure fire in a vehicle. Instead, several indicators suggested the fire may have been initiated from outside or involved the presence of an accelerant. After completing the initial observation, the fire investigator proceeded with a more detailed examination of the vehicle's interior. The doors were opened to assess the fire damage inside the passenger compartment. The interior showed extensive scorching in several areas, particularly on the front floor and passenger seat area. The fire investigator examined the carpet flooring and interior materials in search of traces of flammable liquid that may have been used to start the fire. Some patterns on the material surfaces indicated the possibility that flammable liquid had been poured inside the vehicle prior to ignition. To confirm this hypothesis, the fire investigator collected samples from suspected areas. The samples included portions of flooring material, scorched carpet fragments, and pieces from the front compartment area of the vehicle. Each sample was placed in specialized evidence bags and clearly labeled with the collection location for later laboratory analysis. In addition to collecting samples from inside the vehicle, the fire investigator also examined the road surface and grassy shoulder around the car. Several small burn marks on the road near the front wheels were documented, and a small amount of material from those locations was also collected for analysis. The purpose of collecting these samples was to determine whether residues of flammable substances such as fuel or solvents were present in the fire area. During the examination, the fire investigator documented each step in detail and photographed every area of the vehicle before and after sample collection. All this information was included in the scene report for the investigation file. After completing the overall inspection and collecting the necessary samples, the fire investigator provided a preliminary assessment that Megan Carter's sedan showed multiple signs of having been intentionally set on fire. The distribution of burn marks, possible indications of accelerant use, and the locations of intense fire damage were consistent with an intentional fire rather than a vehicle mechanical issue. This preliminary conclusion was relayed to the Peekskill Police Department investigators and recorded in the Megan Carter missing person investigation file. The samples collected from the scene were sealed and sent to the forensic laboratory for analysis to precisely identify any flammable substance present. Determining that Megan Carter's vehicle showed signs of arson became a significant factor in the investigation, as it indicated the vehicle had been deliberately burned after being brought to the location on the Bronx River Parkway. The investigators continued to store all information about the burned vehicle scene, including the fire investigator's report, scene photographs, and collected samples. As part of the investigation file, the investigators began a detailed examination inside the vehicle to determine whether any personal items belonging to Megan or physical evidence that could help clarify what happened before the car was set on fire existed. Before proceeding with the interior inspection, the investigators photographed the entire exterior of the vehicle once more to document its condition after the fire examination process had concluded. Then the car doors were carefully opened to avoid disturbing any remaining evidence inside the passenger compartment. The interior showed many areas affected by heat and smoke. However, some items were still identifiable. The investigators began checking each area of the vehicle in sequence, starting from the driver's seat, front passenger seat, floor, and storage compartments. During the inspection, several personal items were discovered inside the car. Under the driver's seat and front passenger seat area, a personal bag was found and identified as belonging to Megan Carter based on information previously provided by her family. This bag was carefully collected and placed into an evidence bag to be taken to the evidence storage facility. The investigators continued checking the storage compartments in the vehicle and discovered additional personal items that could belong to Megan, including everyday items typically carried when going out. All these items were documented with their discovery locations before being collected as evidence. After completing the collection of personal items, the investigators moved on to a detailed examination of the driver's seat position in the vehicle. The driver's seat position was considered an important factor in determining who may have been the last person to operate the vehicle before it was abandoned on the Bronx River Parkway. An investigator measured the distance from the driver's seat to the pedals and recorded the seat adjustment position. Based on this position, the investigators noted that the driver's seat was pulled back quite far compared to the position typically seen for someone of Megan Carter's approximate height. Information about the driver's seat position was recorded in detail in the scene report and photographed for archiving. Recording the seat position could help investigators compare it with Megan's height and determine whether the last person driving the vehicle was her. After the seat position check, the investigators proceeded to collect physical traces inside the vehicle. Surfaces of the steering wheel, door handles, and several other areas in the passenger compartment were examined in search of traces that could relate to the presence of another person in the vehicle. Samples were collected from several locations inside the car, including areas that might still retain biological traces or other evidence not completely destroyed by heat. Each sample was placed into separate preservation bags and clearly labeled with the collection location for forensic laboratory analysis. In addition, the investigators also checked the trunk and rear area to determine whether there were any other items or traces related to Megan Carter. Although parts of the interior had been affected by the fire, the investigators still documented every remaining observable detail. The entire interior vehicle examination process was detailed in the scene report, including the discovery locations of personal items, the driver's seat position, and the physical traces collected. The evidence collected from Megan Carter's sedan was subsequently sealed and transferred to the Evidence Storage Department pending further analysis during the investigation. When the interior examination of Megan Carter's sedan was completed, and the driver's seat position was noted as a noteworthy detail in the scene report, Peekskill Police Department investigators proceeded with a more detailed analysis of the driver's seat position to determine the likelihood of who had last driven the vehicle before it was abandoned and set on fire on the Bronx River Parkway. At the time of the scene examination, the driver's seat was recorded as being positioned quite far back from the dashboard and pedals. To determine the significance of this position, the investigators reconstructed the seat position according to the exact measurements recorded at the scene. The distance from the seat edge to the pedals was remeasured and cross-checked with the recorded specifications in the report. In addition, the recline angle of the seat back and the distance from the seat to the steering wheel were also determined to ensure the reconstruction accurately reflected the seat state when the vehicle was discovered. After completing the seat position reconstruction, the investigators began comparing this position with Megan Carter's height. According to information recorded in the missing person file, Megan had average height and typically adjusted the driver's seat closer to the pedals when operating her vehicle. To test this hypothesis, an investigator of similar height to Megan was invited to participate in an experiment. This person sat in the driver's seat while it was in the reconstructed position from the scene. When attempting to place their feet on the brake and accelerator pedals, the investigator found that the distance from the seat to the pedals required their legs to be almost fully extended to reach them. This sitting posture was assessed as unsuitable for comfortably operating the vehicle under normal driving conditions. The investigators continued the test by having the test subject adjust the seat forward to achieve a more suitable driving posture for Megan's height. When the seat was pulled forward a significant distance, the test subject could then place their feet on the pedals naturally and maintain a comfortable hand position on the steering wheel. The difference between the seat position discovered at the scene and the seat position appropriate for Megan's height was documented in detail in the analysis report. After this test, the investigators proceeded with testing using another person taller than Megan. When this person sat in the driver's seat with the seat position kept the same as the initial state found in the vehicle, the distance to the pedals was assessed as more suitable for a normal driving posture. The test subject's legs could reach the pedals without needing to fully straighten, and the hand position on the steering wheel was also more appropriate for vehicle control. The investigators recorded the results of this test as part of the vehicle scene analysis process. The entire seat position reconstruction and testing with different heights were photographed and documented in detail for inclusion in the investigation file. The objective of this analysis step was to determine whether the driver's seat position found in the sedan was consistent with Megan Carter's height. The comparison results indicated that the seat position when the vehicle was found was more likely consistent with a person taller than Megan. This information was recorded as an important investigative data point because it suggested that the last person to drive the vehicle before it was abandoned on the Bronx River Parkway may not have been Megan Carter. The driver's seat position analysis results were entered into the investigation file, along with the other physical data collected from inside the vehicle, including Megan's personal items and other physical traces that had been sealed for analysis. Peekskill Police Department investigators continue to expand the investigation process by focusing on Megan's cell phone data. Megan's phone number had been recorded from the time the missing person file was opened, so the investigators initiated the necessary procedures to obtain data from the telecommunications provider regarding the device Megan used. The goal of this step was to determine the last signal location of Megan's phone, as well as reconstruct the device's movement route during the period from the evening of April 14th through the early morning of April 15, 2015. After receiving the data from the service provider, the investigators began analyzing the location information recorded from the GPS system and cell towers. This data included times when the phone connected to various cell towers in the Hudson Valley area, and the recorded location coordinates during the period the device was active. The investigative team used data analysis software to display the signal points on a map of the area to determine the movement path of Megan's phone after she left the Tarrytown bar. The initial signal points were recorded in the time period immediately after Megan and Ethan Caldwell left the bar around 9 p.m. on April 14. Phone signals during this phase appeared along roads leading out of the Tarrytown area, indicating the device had moved away from the town center. The investigators continued analyzing subsequent signal points recorded in the system. According to the GPS data, Megan's phone continued to emit signals for several hours after leaving the bar. Location points appeared at various positions along roads in the Hudson Valley area. This analysis process allowed the investigators to determine a general movement route of the device, although some signal points were intermittent due to gaps between connections to cell towers. As they continued reviewing the location records, the investigative team noticed that the GPS signals gradually moved northward in the Hudson Valley area. The final location points in the data sequence showed Megan's phone appearing near the Bear Mountain State Park area. This is a large area not far from Peekskill that includes many roads running through forests and natural zones. According to data from the service provider, the last signal from Megan's phone was recorded in the area near Bear Mountain State Park before the device stopped connecting to the network. The time of this last signal was logged in the provider's data system and forwarded to the investigators as part of the location records. After that time, no further signals from Megan's device were recorded in the mobile network system. The investigators marked this last signal location on the investigation map and compared it with other previously collected data, including the location where Megan's sedan was discovered on the Bronx River Parkway. The distance between the burned vehicle location and the Bear Mountain State Park area was noted in the report to aid in analyzing the vehicles and phone's movement routes. All GPS data and cell tower connection records for Megan's phone were stored in the investigation file. The investigators also created a diagram displaying the sequence of signal points in chronological order to reconstruct the device's movement from the evening of April 14 until the last signal was recorded. Identifying the last signal location of Megan Carter's phone near Bear Mountain State Park became an important data point in the investigation, as it provided additional information about the area where Megan's device appeared before completely ceasing transmission. When the location data analysis for Megan Carter's phone was completed, and it was determined that the device's last signal was recorded near Bear Mountain State Park, Peekskill Police Department investigators decided to launch a search operation in this area to verify the possibility that Megan may have gone to or been taken to that area after leaving Tarrytown on the evening of April 14, 2015. Bear Mountain State Park is a vast area with numerous forest trails, hilly terrain, meadows, and lakeside zones, making precise search location determination complex. To prepare for the search operation, police coordinated with park rangers and support units in the area to define the search perimeter based on the previously analyzed GPS data. A priority area was identified around the location of Megan's phone's last signal, and search teams were assigned to check each sector within that range. On the day the search was launched, multiple search teams were mobilized to Bear Mountain State Park. The groups were divided into smaller units to simultaneously check different areas of the park. The teams moved along trails, dense forest areas, and open clearings within the designated range. Each group carried communication equipment and maps marking the areas to be checked to ensure full coverage of the search perimeter. In addition to ground search teams, police also deployed K9 units to assist in the search. The dogs trained to detect human scent were brought into the forest areas and trails around the location of Megan's phone's last signal. The K9 handlers led them through each sector to determine whether any scent related to Megan Carter was present. Trails, forest edges, and less trafficked areas were checked multiple times to ensure no potential signs of Megan's presence were overlooked. In parallel with ground operations, a search helicopter was also deployed to provide aerial observation. The helicopter flew over various parts of Bear Mountain State Park in search of anomalies such as abandoned vehicles, personal items, or any signs indicating a person's presence in the forested area. From the air, the observation team used binoculars and optical equipment to examine areas difficult to access by foot, including steep hillsides and thick, dense forests. Information gathered from the helicopter was relayed to ground search teams to adjust search areas if necessary. The search operation lasted many hours as teams systematically checked each designated area in the search plan. Each group reported their inspection results to the coordination center to ensure checked areas were marked on a map and to avoid duplicate checks. Main trails, clearings near the last signal area, and surrounding forest zones were all checked multiple times. However, after completing the entire defined search perimeter in the operation, the search teams did not discover any signs indicating Megan Carter's presence in Bear Mountain State Park. No body, no new personal items, and no clear physical traces were found throughout the search process. The results of the search operation were recorded in the Peekskill Police Department investigation report. The lack of additional traces found at Bear Mountain State Park left investigators unable to confirm what happened to Megan Carter after her phone signal ceased operating near that area. After the search operation at Bear Mountain State Park yielded no additional traces related to Megan Carter, Peekskill Police Department investigators continued to focus on individuals directly connected to Megan's final activities on the evening of April 14, 2015. Among those identified, Ethan Caldwell was the last person confirmed to have been with Megan before she disappeared. Ethan's statement indicated that Megan left the Tarrytown bar area in her own sedan after the meeting ended. However, subsequent investigative findings, including the discovery of the vehicle set on fire on the Bronx River Parkway and the analysis of the driver's seat position, suggesting the last driver may have been taller than Megan, led investigators to examine Ethan Caldwell more closely. The investigative team conducted a background check on Ethan through law enforcement databases, including personal records, residence history, and any prior contacts with authorities. Investigators accessed the state criminal database to search for any criminal history, arrests, or police reports related to Ethan Caldwell. This review revealed that Ethan had several prior contacts with law enforcement. Records noted incidents involving disorderly conduct and personal disputes. In addition, some older reports documented episodes of violent behavior and personal altercations. This information was collected and incorporated into the investigation file as part of the evaluation of individuals potentially linked to Megan Carter's disappearance. Investigators also reviewed Ethan's employment history, current and past addresses, and social connections to determine whether any elements from his background might relate to the case under investigation. Several acquaintances of Ethan were contacted to verify basic information about his habits and schedule during the time of the incident. These conversations were conducted to determine whether Ethan provided information consistent with what he had told police during the earlier interview. In parallel with the background check, investigators re-examined all data collected during the investigation, including camera footage from the Ossining restaurant, video from the Tarrytown bar, Megan's phone location data, and physical evidence gathered from the burned sedan. This information was cross-referenced with Ethan Caldwell's statement to identify any inconsistencies between his account and the objective evidence obtained. Although Ethan was the last person confirmed to have been with Megan on the evening before her disappearance, at that point, investigators had not found direct evidence linking him to Megan's vanishing. No video captured Ethan with Megan after they left a bar area. No witnesses confirmed seeing Megan and Ethan together after that time. Additionally, physical traces collected from Megan's vehicle did not yet show clear evidence directly connecting Ethan Caldwell to the burned vehicle. However, since Ethan was the last confirmed person to have seen Megan and the one who provided information about her leaving the bar in her own car, investigators decided to designate Ethan Caldwell as a person of interest in the investigation file. Designating Ethan as a person of interest did not mean he was charged or officially considered a suspect, but only reflected that investigators needed to continue monitoring and verifying additional information related to him in the course of the Megan Carter disappearance investigation. Information about Ethan Caldwell's background, records of prior violent incidents, and his designation as a person of interest was documented in the Peekskill Police Department investigation file. After many months of continuous investigation following Megan Carter's reported disappearance in April 2015, Peekskill Police Department investigators had conducted a series of verification and search activities to determine what happened to her after her last recorded evening in Tarrytown. The investigation process included verifying the locations Megan visited on the evening of April 14th, collecting camera data from the Ossining restaurant and Tarrytown bar, interviewing Ethan Caldwell, the last person confirmed to have met Megan, as well as tracking down her personal vehicle. Megan's sedan was later found on the Bronx River Parkway in a deliberately set-on-fire condition, and fire investigators determined signs indicating the vehicle had been intentionally burned. Inside the vehicle, investigators recovered several of Megan's personal items and conducted a detailed scene analysis, including examination of the driver's seat position and collection of remaining physical traces in the car. Analysis of the driver's seat position suggested the possibility that the last person to drive the vehicle may have been taller than Megan, though this finding was inferential and could not definitively identify the driver. In parallel with these activities, GPS data from Megan's cell phone was analyzed, showing the device's last signal near Bear Mountain State Park before it completely ceased functioning. Based on this location data, search forces launched a large-scale operation in the park area, employing multiple ground search teams, K9 units, and a helicopter to check forested areas and trails around the last signal location. However, after many hours of searching and examining priority zones, no body, no new personal items, and no direct physical traces related to Megan Carter were discovered at Bear Mountain State Park. During the investigation, Ethan Caldwell was designated a person of interest because he was the last known person with Megan before her disappearance. Investigators checked Ethan's background and found prior convictions related to violent behavior and personal incidents. However, examination of physical data and evidence collected during the investigation showed no direct connection between Ethan Caldwell and Megan Carter's disappearance. No video recorded Ethan with Megan after they left the Tarrytown bar. No witnesses confirmed seeing Megan after that time, and no physical evidence from the burned sedan directly linked Ethan to the scene. Throughout 2015, investigators continued to review new tips submitted by the public and followed up on several leads provided, but none led to locating Megan Carter or provided sufficiently strong evidence to determine exactly what happened after the night she disappeared. The absence of Megan's body also made it difficult for investigators to establish whether she was deceased or still alive at that point. The lack of a body meant no cause of death could be determined, and no official crime scene directly tied to a specific criminal act. In addition, no direct eyewitnesses came forward to provide confirming information about events after Megan left the Tarrytown bar on the evening of April 14, 2015. The shortage of witnesses and physical evidence left prosecutors without sufficient legal basis to charge any individual in connection with the case. After reviewing all collected data and assessing the feasibility of continuing the investigation with available resources, Peekskill Police Department decided to change the status of Megan Carter's file. By 2016, when primary investigative avenues had been exhausted and no new leads could be pursued, Megan Carter's missing person case was officially transferred to the cold case unit. This decision did not mean the case was fully closed, but only that active investigation would be suspended pending new information or evidence. The entire investigation file, including camera data, SEAM reports, forensic analysis results, phone data, and related interview records, was archived in the Peekskill Police Department cold case system for potential future review if new developments related to Megan Carter's disappearance after the evening of April 14, 2015 emerged. In October 2021, more than 6 years after Megan Carter's missing person file was transferred to the cold case unit, an unexpected discovery at Bear Mountain State Park brought renewed attention to the case. On a morning following prolonged heavy rain across the Hudson Valley area, a park trail maintenance worker was performing routine checks along a little-used trail segment in the forested part of the park. While walking along the trail edge, the worker noticed a light-colored object protruding from the damp soil after rainwater had eroded the surface layer. Approaching to inspect, he realized the object resembled a human bone fragment. Recognizing the unusual nature of the find, the worker immediately stopped work and notified park management. The information was subsequently forwarded to the New York State Police responsible for the area. A state police unit was quickly dispatched to Bear Mountain State Park to examine the scene. Upon arrival, officers found the area where the bone fragment was discovered, a short distance from the main trail and within a gently sloping forested zone. Officers conducted a preliminary check and confirmed the protruding object had characteristics consistent with human bone. Immediately after confirming the likelihood that this was human remains, New York State Police decided to cordon off the surrounding area along the trail segment to protect the scene. Caution tape was erected to prevent park visitors from approaching while specialized units were summoned to handle the scene. The New York State Police Crime Scene Unit was deployed to the discovery site to conduct excavation and collect related evidence. Scene investigators began by photographing the overall discovery area from multiple angles, including the trail position, the eroded soil area, and the precise spot where the bone fragment was first seen. After completing the initial documentation, forensic specialists started carefully excavating the soil around the discovery area. The work was performed with small tools to avoid damaging any remains or evidence that might exist beneath the surface. During the excavation, specialists discovered additional bone fragments lying under shallow soil in the nearby area. These fragments were scattered over a range of a few meters around the initial discovery site, indicating the remains had been dispersed in the forest area. Each bone fragment was marked with its exact position on the scene map before collection. In addition to the bone fragments, scene specialists also found several items near the remains area. Within the soil and decayed leaves near the bones, they located remnants of fabric that appeared to be degraded clothing remnants over time. These fabric pieces were collected and placed into evidence bags for later analysis. Near the bone discovery area, a metal necklace was also found in the leaf litter. This item was photographed in its original position before being collected as evidence. Furthermore, Scene specialists discovered a heavily damaged cell phone device, partially buried under soil and leaves. The device was corroded and no longer intact, but was carefully collected for future examination. The entire excavation area was documented in detail, with scene photographs and scene maps prepared by the crime scene unit. The positions of discovered bones and evidence were marked on the map to ensure accurate reconstruction of each item's original location. After completing the collection of all remains and related evidence, forensic specialists packaged each item according to evidence preservation protocols. Bone fragments were placed in specialized preservation boxes to prevent damage during transport. Items found near the remains, including fabric pieces, the metal necklace, and the damaged cell phone, were also sealed separately. Once scene processing was fully completed, all remains collected at Bear Mountain State Park were transferred to the New York State Forensic Laboratory for subsequent analysis steps to identify the identity and characteristics of the newly discovered skeletal remains. When the skeletal remains and evidence collected at Bear Mountain State Park were transferred to the New York State Forensic Laboratory, the initial examination process was carried out to determine the basic biological characteristics of the individual. Forensic experts began by inventorying all the bone fragments collected from the scene and arranging them on the examination table to assess the completeness of the skeletal set. Due to the remains having been in a forested environment for many years and buried shallowly under soil, some bone portions had become detached and affected by weathering and natural decomposition. However, the quantity of bones recovered was still sufficient to proceed with basic forensic anthropological analysis. The first step was to confirm whether the bone fragments were truly human. Through examination of surface structure, bone thickness, and morphology, the experts confirmed that all the fragments belonged to a human skeleton. After this confirmation, the forensic team proceeded to analyze long bones, the pelvis, and some remaining skull portions to determine the biological characteristics of the individual. Based on the size and structure of the arm and leg bones, the examination team determined the remains belonged to a young adult rather than a child. Next, the experts focused on analyzing the pelvis and certain anatomical features of the skull to determine sex. The wide shape of the pelvic girdle, along with characteristic structural features, indicated the remains were consistent with female according to forensic anthropological standards. After determining sex, the examination team continued to estimate the age of the individual at the time of death. Age estimation was performed using multiple methods, including analysis of the development status of the ends of long bones, the degree of fusion between epiphyses and diaphyses, as well as the condition of any remaining teeth. Dental analysis showed relatively low wear and tooth structure consistent with a young individual. Combining indicators from bones and teeth, the forensic experts estimated the individual's age at late teens or early 20s. After completing the determination of basic biological characteristics, the experts proceeded to examine the bones for signs of trauma. Each bone fragment was observed under specialized lighting and magnification to look for cracks, cuts, or indications of injury that might relate to blunt force before or after death. Some bones were also examined using X-rays to detect minor injuries not visible to the naked eye. This process aimed to determine whether there were any signs indicating the individual had suffered serious trauma. In parallel with examining bone structure, forensic experts collected biological samples for identification purposes. Several bone fragments were selected to extract bone marrow samples, as marrow can contain analyzable genetic material even after years of burial. Bone marrow samples were taken under sterile conditions and preserved in specialized tubes before being sent to the DNA analysis laboratory. At the laboratory, forensic scientists extracted DNA from the bone marrow samples and generated a DNA profile according to forensic identification standards. This profile was then entered into the system for comparison with the New York State Missing Persons database. When the bone marrow samples collected from the skeletal remains were analyzed at the New York State Forensic Laboratory, the experts generated a DNA profile of the individual and entered this profile into the comparison system with the state's Missing Persons database. This database stores DNA profiles related to individuals reported missing along with reference DNA samples provided by family members during investigations. Among the entries was the profile related to Megan Carter, who had been reported missing in Peekskill in April 2015 and whose case file was later transferred to cold case in 2016 due to lack of evidence and no body recovery. The DNA comparison process was conducted through the Standard Forensic Identification System of New York State. After the samples were processed and compared, the results show that the DNA profile obtained from the remains discovered at Bear Mountain State Park matched the DNA profile of Megan Carter in the state's Missing Persons database. This match was confirmed through multiple internal laboratory verification steps to ensure accuracy before official release. Once the results were confirmed, a complete forensic examination report was prepared and forwarded to the New York State Police, the agency handling the remains discovery scene at Bear Mountain State Park. Identifying the remains as Megan Carter marked a major turning point in the long-standing disappearance case. New York State Police subsequently contacted Peekskill Police Department to report the examination results. Investigators who had worked on the case in 2015 were informed that the remains found in the Bear Mountain State Park area had been identified as Megan Carter through DNA analysis. This information immediately changed the status of the case file. Previously, Megan Carter had been recorded as an unresolved missing person, but confirmation of the remains showed she was deceased. Upon receiving the notification, Peekskill Police Department proceeded to review the archived missing person file in the cold case system. This file included all initial investigative data from 2015, such as the missing person intake report, camera data from the Ossining restaurant and Tarrytown bar, records of Ethan Caldwell's statement, the burn vehicle investigation report on the Bronx River Parkway, driver's seat position analysis results from the sedan, Megan's phone location data, and the Bear Mountain State Park search operation report. Confirmation of the remains' identity transformed the case from a simple missing person matter into an unsolved death investigation. On that basis, New York State Police decided to officially reopen the case file. Since the remains were discovered many years after the disappearance, the case was assigned to the Cold Case Unit of New York State Police for handling. The Cold Case Unit is responsible for reviewing unresolved cases and applying new investigative methods to uncover leads that may have been overlooked in prior investigations. After taking over the Megan Carter case, the Cold Case Unit requested the transfer of the entire original investigative file from Peekskill Police Department. The transferred materials included the 2015 Missing Person Intake Report, records of Ethan Caldwell's interviews, camera data from locations Megan visited on her final evening, reports on the burned sedan crime scene, phone location data, and Bear Mountain State Park search reports. In addition, physical evidence collected during the earlier investigation was inventoried and transferred for re-examination. Reassembling the complete 2015 investigative file allowed Cold Case Unit investigators a comprehensive view of the original investigation progress, including hypotheses considered and evidence gathered. When the Cold Case Unit of New York State Police officially took over the Megan Carter case and the entire 2015 investigative file was transferred from Peekskill Police Department, investigators began a thorough re-review of all data from the initial investigation. The objective of this step was to reassess previously collected evidence while identifying details that may have been overlooked or insufficiently analyzed in the prior investigation. Cold case investigators first focused on the crime scene report related to Megan Carter's sedan, discovered on the Bronx River Parkway in a burned condition. They re-examined the entire vehicle fire investigation file, including scene photographs, the fire investigator's report, and samples previously collected from inside the vehicle. Notes regarding the discovery of Megan's personal items in the car were also rechecked, along with the driver's seat position analysis results indicating the seat was adjusted farther back than a position suitable for Megan's height. Investigators flagged this detail as a significant factor because it suggested the possibility that the last person to drive the vehicle may not have been Megan Carter. After reviewing the vehicle scene portion, the cold case team moved to reanalyze Megan Carter's phone data collected during the initial investigation. GPS location records and cell tower connection data were loaded into analysis systems to recheck the entire signal sequence. Investigators focused on location points from the evening of April 14, 2015, starting from when Megan left the Tarrytown bar until the phone's last signal was recorded near Bear Mountain State Park. Re-examining the data aimed to more precisely determine the device's movement route and check for any unexplained gaps in the signal chain that had not been addressed in the earlier investigation. The next step in the review process was to revisit all camera video data collected in 2015. Footage from the Ossining restaurant and Tarrytown bar was reviewed in chronological order to confirm the times Megan Carter appeared at and departed from these locations. Investigators also re-examined traffic camera segments previously gathered during the search for Megan's sedan after she left the bar. Each video segment was annotated with specific times to ensure no details were missed. In parallel with reviewing image data, cold case investigators reread all witness statement records collected during the initial investigation. These records included statements from Ossining restaurant staff, Tarrytown bar employees and patrons, as well as Ethan Caldwell's statement, the last person confirmed to have met Megan Carter before her disappearance. The statements were re-examined to determine whether any inconsistencies existed between witness accounts and the physical evidence collected. After completing the review of the main file sections, investigators began compiling a detailed timeline of all events occurring from April 14th to April 15th, 2015. This timeline included the time Megan worked at the Hudson River restaurant, the time she met Ethan Caldwell at the Ossining restaurant, the period the two appeared at the Tarrytown bar, and the time Megan was recorded leaving that location. Subsequent timeline points included Megan's phone signal data, the time the sedan was discovered on the Bronx River Parkway, and the time of the phone's final signal near Bear Mountain State Park. Creating the timeline allowed investigators to clearly visualize the sequence of events during the period of Megan Carter's disappearance. During the cross-referencing of timeline points and evidence, cold case detectives identified several aspects of the initial investigation that had not been fully clarified. Certain time periods in the timeline lacked witness or camera confirmation of Megan's activities after leaving the Tarrytown bar. Additionally, the distance between the burned sedan location on the Bronx River Parkway and the final phone signal location at Bear Mountain State Park was flagged as a factor requiring further consideration. When the Cold Case Unit of New York State Police completed the comprehensive review of the 2015 investigative file and identified several information gaps in the timeline of the night Megan Carter disappeared, investigators decided to revisit certain image data previously collected during the initial investigation. Among these were surveillance camera footage from the Bear Mountain State Park area, where Megan's phone data showed the final signal before the device ceased functioning and where her remains were discovered many years later. The 2015 file indicated that some security cameras along park access roads and near trail areas had been collected for review at the time, but the video copies then were of low quality and the image processing technology available did not allow extraction of many details from frames under low-light conditions. Therefore, cold case investigators requested that Bear Mountain State Park Management provide the original video files again if they still existed in the storage system. After contacting the Park Management Unit, several original video files from surveillance cameras were located in the data backup system. These records included footage capturing activity at certain trail entrances and areas near parking lots during the period from the evening of April 14th through the early morning of April 15th, 2015. These video files were transferred to the New York State Police Digital Analysis Lab for processing using more advanced modern image enhancement software than the technology used in the initial investigation. Video analysis specialists began by improving frame quality through steps such as increasing resolution, adjusting contrast, and brightening dark areas in the images. The goal of this process was to clarify details that were difficult to observe in the original recordings. After processing several video segments, investigators discovered in one frame the silhouette of a person moving near a trail area in the park at night. This image had been noted in the 2015 file, but at that time the quality was too low for analysis. With the enhanced video version, the person's silhouette appeared clearer, showing an individual moving along a path in the forested area near the location where Megan Carter's remains were later found. Specialists began analyzing the figure in the video to determine basic characteristics. Due to low light conditions and the considerable distance from the camera to the recording position, the person's face could not be identified. However, the overall body shape, stride length, and body proportions could still be analyzed to a certain extent. To estimate the height of the person in the video, specialists used terrain reference points in the frame. These included trail signs along the path and fixed structures in the area such as wooden posts and guardrails. By comparing the silhouette's height to known size objects in the frame, image analysis software enabled the experts to make a relative height estimation of the individual in the video. The measurement process was repeated multiple times using different reference points to ensure result accuracy. The analysis results indicated that the person appearing in the video segment had an estimated height greater than Megan Carter's height based on the biological information determined in the forensic file. The enhanced frames along with measurement data and technical notes were saved in the video analysis report and incorporated into the cold case file for the Megan Carter case to support subsequent investigative steps. When the New York State Police video analysis experts completed the enhancement and processing of the surveillance camera footage from Bear Mountain State Park, the results of the silhouette analysis of the person appearing in the frame were forwarded to the cold case investigative team for further evaluation. In the technical report, the experts provided a relative height estimation of the individual in the video based on comparing the silhouette to fixed terrain reference points in the frame. such as trail signs, wooden posts, and guardrails along the park path. Measurements were performed multiple times using different reference points to ensure the accuracy of the estimate. The analysis results indicated that the height of the person in the video fell approximately within the range of 182 to 182 centimeters when compared to the sizes of the fixed objects in the frame. After receiving these results, cold case investigators began comparing the estimated height information with the personal records of individuals previously considered in the 2015 initial investigation. Among those previously interviewed, Ethan Caldwell was the last person confirmed to have met Megan Carter on the evening of April 14, 2015, at the restaurant in Ossining, and then accompanied her to the bar in Tarrytown. Ethan Caldwell's personal file in the 2015 investigative documents recorded his height at approximately 185 centimeters. This figure fell near the center of the height range estimated from the silhouette analysis in the Bear Mountain State Park surveillance video. The cold case investigative team then proceeded to re-review Ethan Caldwell's entire file from the prior investigation to compare related information. The file included personal statement records, initial interview reports, background information, and data related to Ethan's activities during the period of Megan Carter's disappearance. Investigators also rechecked previous notes concerning Ethan's height and build from the 2015 interview process. When cross-referencing this information with the new video analysis data, they noted that Ethan Caldwell's height closely matched the estimated height range from the silhouette in the Bear Mountain State Park video segment. In addition to height, investigators also examined the body proportions and gait observed in the video. Although these factors were not sufficient to definitively identify the individual due to image quality limitations, they were still documented as characteristics comparable to Ethan Caldwell's personal information. Investigators subsequently incorporated these analysis results into the reopened case file for Megan Carter. In the cold case unit's internal report, details related to the silhouette height in the video were noted as a factor consistent with Ethan Caldwell's personal information. This was particularly significant because Ethan Caldwell had previously been identified as the last person with Megan Carter before her disappearance. When combined with existing 2015 file data, including Megan leaving the Tarrytown bar with Ethan Caldwell and then no longer appearing at any public location, investigators concluded that Ethan remained a key figure requiring thorough re-examination in the reopened investigation. Based on the comparison results between the video silhouette height and Ethan Caldwell's personal records, cold case detectives officially designated Ethan Caldwell as the primary suspect in a reopened investigation file for the Megan Carter case. This decision was made based on synthesizing the factors identified during the file review process, including the newly analyzed video data, the timeline of events on the night of Megan's disappearance, and information confirming Ethan as the last person known to have been with Megan Carter before she vanished. After the cold case unit of New York State Police designated Ethan Caldwell as the primary suspect in the reopened investigation based on the Bear Mountain State Park video analysis results and the misleading matching silhouette height, investigators continued to revisit another critical data source from the 2015 file, Megan Carter's phone data. In the initial investigation, investigators had collected some records related to the phone's location signals and cell tower connections. However, mobile data analysis technology at that time was limited, and portions of the data were only exploited at a basic level. With advancements in digital forensic tools in subsequent years, cold case detectives decided to request that the New York State Police Digital Forensic Laboratory re-extract and reanalyze all remaining archived data from Megan Carter's phone. The heavily damaged phone had been recovered at Bear Mountain State Park along with Megan's remains, and although the device was no longer functional, digital forensic experts were still able to extract residual data from the internal memory using modern forensic methods. The data extraction process was performed in a specialized laboratory, where experts used direct memory reading equipment to access the phone's storage partitions. The retrieved data included mobile network connection logs, location data associated with cell towers, and some system records capturing times when the device connected or switched between signal towers. After the raw data was extracted, experts processed and reordered the records chronologically to create a connection sequence for the device during the period from the evening of April 14th through the early morning of April 15, 2015. This analysis focused on the history of Megan's phone connections to cell towers in the Hudson Valley area and surrounding regions. Each time the phone connected to a cell tower, the network system recorded the time and tower location. By analyzing this connection sequence, experts could estimate the device's movement route during the period of Megan Carter's disappearance. The data was imported into geographic analysis software to display connection points on a map. Initial results showed Megan's phone connecting to cell towers in the Tarrytown area around the time she was recorded, leaving the bar with Ethan Caldwell. The connection sequence then continued moving southward, passing through several towers along the Yonkers area. The device's connections to towers in this area indicated the phone had traveled through Yonkers after leaving Tarrytown. Subsequent records showed the device continuing northward along transportation corridors leading to the Hudson Highlands area. In the period after midnight, network connections indicated Megan's phone had switched to towers near Bear Mountain State Park. This signal sequence aligned with the last recorded signal location from the 2015 initial investigation. However, with the data reanalyzed using new forensic software, experts could more clearly determine the sequence of the device's movement before the signal completely disappeared. The analysis showed the phone moving from the Yonkers area northward before entering the coverage of towers near Bear Mountain State Park. After displaying the full connection sequence on the map, cold case investigators could observe a relatively clear route of Megan Carter's phone journey on the night she disappeared. This route began in the Tarrytown area, continued through Yonkers, and then moved northward to Bear Mountain State Park, where the device's final signal was recorded before the phone ceased functioning. When cold case investigators of New York State Police completed the reanalysis of Megan Carter's phone data and determined the device's movement route on the night she disappeared, the next step in the reopened investigation focused on verifying this route using independent image data sources. The phone data showed the device moving from the Tarrytown area through Yonkers and then continuing northward to Bear Mountain State Park before the final signal was lost. To verify this route, investigators decided to recollect traffic camera data along the roadways connecting these areas. Although the incident occurred in 2015, some transportation agencies in the region still maintained long-term backups of traffic camera data for traffic analysis and accident investigation purposes. Cold case detectives contacted New York State transportation authorities, as well as highway management units in the Hudson Valley area, to request retrieval of archived video records from traffic cameras along major routes connecting Yonkers to the Bear Mountain area. After searching the data storage systems, several video segments from traffic cameras at intersections and major road sections were identified as still existing in backup systems. These video segments were then transferred to the New York State Police Image Analysis Lab for detailed examination. Investigators began by identifying timeframes in the videos corresponding to the periods when Megan Carter's phone was recorded, connecting to cell towers in the area. Phone data provided a fairly clear time sequence of the device moving from Yonkers northward, so video analysis experts focused on frames capturing vehicle traffic during matching time periods. The review process was conducted point by point along the route determined from the phone data. At each camera location, investigators checked vehicles passing through the area during timeframes consistent with Megan's phone tower connection data. One primary objective of this analysis was to search for images of the sedan registered to Megan Carter, the vehicle discovered burned on the Bronx River Parkway in the initial investigation. Based on 2015 vehicle records, investigators had information on the car's color, make, model, and license plate number. These details were used as criteria to identify the vehicle in the traffic videos. During the analysis, experts discovered a vehicle matching the characteristics of Megan Carter's sedan appearing in the frame of a traffic camera near the Yonkers area during a time consistent with Megan's phone tower connection data. The vehicle was then recorded in subsequent video segments from other traffic cameras along the northward route. Each time the vehicle appeared in a frame, the recorded time was compared to Megan's phone mobile network connection data to confirm alignment between the two sources. When the video segments were arranged chronologically, investigators could track the sedan's appearances at multiple points along the route from Yonkers to the Bear Mountain area. The frame showed the vehicle traveling northward along major roads leading to the Hudson Highlands area. The car's appearances at various camera points along this route aligned with the movement path determined from Megan Carter's phone data. Keyframes from the video segments were extracted and preserved as image evidence in the reopened investigation file. Each frame was annotated with the corresponding time and camera location, allowing investigators to precisely determine when the vehicle appeared at each point along the route. These image data were then compiled into the Traffic Video Analysis Report and added to the cold case file for the Megan Carter case as part of reconstructing the vehicle's journey on the night she disappeared. The traffic camera analysis results along the route from Yonkers to Bear Mountain State Park showed Megan Carter's sedan appearing at multiple points on the route, consistent with the path determined from her phone data. The video segments recorded the vehicle traveling northward along roads leading to the Bear Mountain area during times corresponding to Megan's phone tower connections on the night she disappeared. When this data was placed alongside the Bear Mountain State Park video analysis results, where a figure with a height matching Ethan Caldwell appeared near the area where remains were later discovered, cold case unit investigators began focusing attention on Ethan Caldwell as the primary suspect in the reopened investigation. To further develop related evidence, the investigative team prepared a legal affidavit to obtain a search warrant for Ethan Caldwell's residence. The search warrant application was built on all data identified during the reopened investigation, including the park surveillance video silhouette analysis, Megan Carter's phone location data showing the device moving to the Bear Mountain area, and traffic video segments showing Megan's sedan on the route toward that area. Investigators compiled these analysis results into a detailed report to present to the appropriate New York State Court. After reviewing the submitted materials and investigative basis, the judge approved the request and signed the search warrant for Ethan Caldwell's residence in the Hudson Valley area. A team of New York State Police investigators was assigned to execute the warrant. Upon arriving at the address identified as Ethan Caldwell's residence, investigators announced the search warrant in accordance with legal procedure before beginning the interior search. The search was conducted systematically to locate items potentially related to the Megan Carter case. Investigators examined each area of the home, including the living room, bedroom, kitchen, and storage areas. Each area was photographed before evidence collection to preserve the original condition of the search location. During the inspection of the home's storage area, investigators discovered an old jacket hanging in a closet. This jacket was noted as potential evidence and packaged according to standard evidence collection protocol. Each piece of evidence collected was labeled, documented with its discovery location, and sealed to prevent cross-contamination before transfer to the forensic laboratory. In the kitchen area, investigators found several kitchen knives stored in drawers and on a knife rack. These knives were preliminarily examined at the scene and then added to the evidence list for collection and forensic examination. Each knife was packaged separately to protect any potential physical traces on the blade surfaces or handles. In addition to kitchen items, investigators also inspected electronic devices in the home. Several personal electronic devices and data storage units were seized due to their potential to contain information related to Ethan Caldwell's activities during the period of Megan Carter's 2015 disappearance. These devices were sealed and recorded in the evidence list for digital data analysis at the forensic laboratory. Throughout the search process, all collected evidence was detailed in the search protocol, including descriptions of items, discovery locations, and seizure times. Investigators also photographed each piece of evidence before packaging to ensure complete visual record of the evidence collection process. When the search was completed, all evidence seized from Ethan Caldwell's home, including the old jacket, kitchen knives, and electronic devices, was transferred to the New York State Police Forensic Laboratory. At the lab, forensic experts will examine each item for biological traces, physical evidence, or digital data potentially related to the Megan Carter case. These examination results will then be added to the cold case unit's reopened investigation file to support determining Ethan Caldwell's role in the events of the night Megan Carter disappeared. All evidence seized from Ethan Caldwell's residence was transferred to the New York State Police Forensic Laboratory for detailed analysis, following standard protocols for evidence related to criminal cases. Among the items sent to the lab, the old jacket recovered from the closet area of the home was assessed by investigators as potential evidence likely to contain significant biological traces. Forensic experts began the examination process by documenting the item's initial condition, including color, fabric structure, locations of stains, and any signs indicating possible contact with organic material. The jacket was placed on the examination table in the lab and photographed in detail before sample collection proceeded. The examination focused on areas of the jacket likely to have had direct contact with the body or another person, including the collar, sleeves, and front zipper area. Forensic experts used specialized sampling tools to collect samples from the jacket's fabric surface. Each sample was collected using sterile swabs and labeled according to its specific location on the jacket to ensure precise traceability of each sample's origin during analysis. After collection, the samples were sealed in separate containers and assigned codes for entry into the DNA testing process. In the laboratory's biological analysis section, the samples were processed to extract DNA. This process involved breaking down any remaining cells in the samples to release genetic material. followed by the use of specialized chemicals to isolate and purify the DNA. Once the DNA was extracted, experts amplified characteristic DNA segments using the PCR method to generate sufficient material for analysis. These DNA segments were then entered into a genetic analysis system to generate DNA profiles from the samples collected on the jacket. During the analysis, forensic experts discovered that several samples taken from the collar and front zipper area of the jacket contained DNA from someone other than the jacket's owner. These DNA samples were isolated and further analyzed to determine their genetic profiles. The DNA profiles obtained from these samples were then compared to the DNA database related to the Megan Carter case. In the prior investigative file, forensic experts had generated a DNA profile from bone marrow samples collected from the skeletal remains discovered at Bear Mountain State Park and identified the victim as Megan Carter. This DNA profile was stored in the New York State Forensic Database. When comparing the DNA profiles from the jacket samples to Megan Carter's DNA profile in the system, the analysis results showed a match between the two genetic datasets. Specifically, genetic markers from the DNA samples collected from the collar and front zipper area of the jacket matched Megan Carter's DNA profile generated from the bone marrow samples of the skeletal remains. This match was confirmed through multiple internal laboratory verification steps to ensure result accuracy before inclusion in the official report. Forensic experts prepared a detailed examination report documenting that Megan Carter's DNA was detected on the jacket seized from Ethan Caldwell's home, specifically in the collar and front zipper areas. The report included information on sample collection locations, DNA extraction and analysis methods, and comparison results with Megan Carter's DNA profile. Upon completion, the examination report was forwarded to the Cold Case Unit of New York State Police for inclusion in the reopened case file. The DNA examination results on the evidence became a significant component in the body of evidence being assembled by cold case investigators during the re-examination of the Megan Carter case. The DNA examination results from the jacket seized from Ethan Caldwell's home were forwarded to the Cold Case Unit of New York State Police and became a key part of the evidence being built during the reopened investigation of the Megan Carter case. With the new forensic data combined with prior video analysis results, phone data, and traffic camera footage, investigators proceeded to the next phase of the investigation, fully reconstructing the events of the night Megan Carter disappeared on the evening into the early morning of April 14 to 15, 2015. The objective of this reconstruction was to precisely determine the sequence of locations Megan passed through, the time period she was present at each location, and the most likely time frame when the crime occurred. Cold case investigators began by compiling all confirmed timestamps from the original investigative file, as well as new data gathered during the reopened investigation. The first milestone in the timeline was Megan Carter's presence at the restaurant in Ossining on the evening of April 14, 2015. Security camera footage from the restaurant confirmed Megan met Ethan Caldwell at this location and that the two remained there for a period before departing. The time the two left the restaurant was verified through camera data and entered into the timeline as the starting point of the sequence of events leading to Megan's disappearance. From the Ossining restaurant, Megan and Ethan Caldwell continued to a bar in Tarrytown. Bar camera footage confirmed both were present there and stayed for a period that evening. Video segments recorded Megan and Ethan leaving the bar around 9 p.m. This was the last time Megan Carter was confirmed to appear at a public location. This information was placed in the timeline as the final timestamp Megan was seen before vanishing. Investigators then incorporated Megan's phone data into the timeline to determine what occurred after she left the Tarrytown bar. Analysis of cell tower connection data showed Megan's phone continuing to move through the Yonkers area in the subsequent period. In the investigative file, Ethan Caldwell's residence was also located in the Yonkers area, drawing particular attention from investigators when cross-referencing timeline timestamps. Mobile network connection records indicated Megan's phone was in the Yonkers area for a period before continuing northward. From this data, investigators added Ethan Caldwell's home in Yonkers to the timeline as a location relevant to Megan's journey on the night she disappeared. The next step in the timeline reconstruction was to determine the travel route of Megan Carter's sedan after leaving the Yonkers area. Traffic camera video segments collected during the reopened investigation showed Megan's car appearing at multiple points along the northward route. These images aligned with phone data showing the device continuing to connect to cell towers leading toward the Hudson Highlands area. Timestamps from traffic cameras were entered into the timeline to more precisely define the vehicle's journey in the post-midnight period. The final point in the data sequence was the Bear Mountain State Park area. There, phone data analysis showed the last signal from Megan Carter's device before it ceased functioning. Park surveillance video also recorded a figure appearing near a trail area at night, and silhouette analysis indicated the person's height matched Ethan Caldwell. Additionally, this was the area where Megan Carter's remains were discovered many years later. When all data from the Ossining Restaurant, Tarrytown Bar, Yonkers area, and Bear Mountain State Park were placed within the same timeline, investigators could clearly establish the sequence of locations and time periods related to the night Megan Carter disappeared. Cross-referencing timestamps from cameras, phone data, and traffic video allowed investigators to identify the highest probability timeframe for the crime occurring after Megan left the Tarrytown Bar and before her phone signal vanished at Bear Mountain State Park. This reconstructed timeline was entered into the investigative file as a critical foundation for determining the sequence of events on the night Megan Carter disappeared. The reconstructed timeline of the night Megan Carter disappeared was completed and entered into the investigative file as a detailed description of the sequence of events from the time she met Ethan Caldwell at the restaurant in Ossining until her phone signal disappeared in the Bear Mountain State Park area. When this timeline was placed alongside forensic analysis results and digital data collected during the reopened investigation, the Cold Case Unit of New York State Police proceeded to the next phase of the investigation, completing the charging package. The objective of this phase was to compile all evidence identified during the re-examination of the Megan Carter case and prepare a comprehensive file for transfer to the prosecutor's office. Cold case investigators began by organizing all image data from the various video camera sources collected during the reopened investigation. Footage from the Ossining Restaurant and Tarrytown Bar was included in the file as evidence confirming Megan Carter met Ethan Caldwell on the evening of April 14, 2015. These video segments also recorded the times the two departed those locations, creating clear timestamps for the last time Megan was seen in public. In addition, traffic camera footage along the route from Yonkers to Bear Mountain State Park was extracted and included in the file. Frames showed Megan Carter's sedan appearing at multiple points on the northward route during times consistent with her phone data. These images were annotated with specific times and camera locations, forming an image data chain supporting determination of the vehicle's travel route on the night Megan disappeared. Beyond traffic videos, the file also included Bear Mountain State Park video analysis results, where a figure appeared near a trail area at night. Silhouette analysis from this video indicated the person's height matched Ethan Caldwell, and this finding was documented in the Digital Lab's image analysis report. In parallel with video data, investigators compiled all results from the analysis of Megan Carter's phone data. The digital forensic report showed Megan's phone connecting to mobile cell towers from the Tarrytown area, then moving through Yonkers and continuing northward before the final signal appeared in the Bear Mountain State Park area. This cell tower connection sequence was displayed on a map and included in the investigative file as evidence of the device's movement route on the night Megan vanished. Another critical component of the charging package was the DNA examination results from the jacket seized at Ethan Caldwell's home. The forensic lab report confirmed Megan Carter's DNA was detected on the collar and front zipper areas of the jacket. This DNA profile was compared to the DNA profile generated from bone marrow samples of the skeletal remains discovered at Bear Mountain State Park, with results showing a complete match. The DNA examination results were detailed in the forensic report and included in the investigative file as biological evidence linking Megan Carter to evidence seized from Ethan Caldwell's residence. After video data, phone data, and DNA evidence were compiled, cold case investigators added the reconstructed timeline of the night Megan Carter disappeared to the package. This timeline clearly depicted the sequence of locations and timestamps from the Ossining Restaurant, Tarrytown Bar, Yonkers area, where Ethan Caldwell resided, to Bear Mountain State Park, where Megan Carter's remains were discovered many years later. Combining the timeline with video data, phone data, and DNA evidence allowed investigators to construct an overall picture of the chain of events on the night Megan Carter disappeared. Once all evidence was organized and documented in the file, the cold case unit finalized the investigative dossier, including forensic reports, video analysis, digital data, and the reconstructed timeline. This complete dossier was then transferred to the New York State Prosecutor's Office for review and evaluation under legal procedure to determine next steps in criminal prosecution related to the Megan Carter case. The complete investigative dossier prepared by the Cold Case Unit of New York State Police was transferred to the New York State Prosecutor's Office for review under legal procedure. This file encompassed all evidence collected and analyzed during the reopened investigation of the Megan Carter case, including video footage from the Ossining restaurant and Tarrytown bar confirming Megan Carter met Ethan Caldwell on the evening of April 14, 2015. Traffic camera footage showing Megan's sedan on the route from Yonkers to Bear Mountain State Park. Cell tower connection data from Megan's phone depicting the device's movement route on the night she disappeared. Bear Mountain State Park video analysis recording a figure with height matching Ethan Caldwell, and the forensic DNA report confirming Megan Carter's DNA on the jacket seized from Ethan Caldwell's home. In addition, the file included the reconstructed timeline of the entire sequence of events from Megan Carter meeting Ethan Caldwell at the Ossining restaurant until her phone signal disappeared at Bear Mountain State Park. Prosecutors reviewed all materials to assess whether the body of evidence provided sufficient legal basis for criminal prosecution. The evaluation process included verifying the legality of search warrants, evidence collection methods, and forensic examination results entered into the file. After completing the review, the prosecutor's office concluded that the evidence compiled by the cold case unit was sufficient to proceed with criminal prosecution of Ethan Caldwell in connection with Megan Carter's death. On that basis, prosecutors filed the dossier with the court to request approval of an arrest warrant for Ethan Caldwell. The judge reviewed the materials and signed the arrest warrant in accordance with New York State legal procedure. After the arrest warrant was approved, New York State Police organized a plan to execute the warrant against Ethan Caldwell. In 2022, New York State Police investigators located Ethan Caldwell in the Hudson Valley area. A team of officers was dispatched to carry out the arrest warrant following law enforcement protocols. Upon approaching Ethan Caldwell, officers announced the arrest warrant and took him into custody as required. Ethan Caldwell was placed in custody and transported to a detention facility for further processing under criminal procedure. After his arrest, Ethan Caldwell was formally notified of the charges he faced in the case related to Megan Carter. New York State prosecutors charged Ethan Caldwell with murder in connection with causing Megan Carter's death, mutilation of a corpse in connection with handling and concealing the victim's body, and arson in connection with setting fire to Megan Carter's sedan discovered on the Bronx River Parkway during the initial 2015 investigation. These charges were based on the body of evidence identified during the cold case unit's reopened investigation. The arrest of Ethan Caldwell marked a major turning point in the Megan Carter case, which had originated as a missing person file in 2015 before being transferred to cold case in 2016 due to lack of evidence and no recovery of the victim's body. With the discovery of remains at Bear Mountain State Park in 2021 and the subsequent reopened investigation, New York State Police investigators built the evidence leading to Ethan Caldwell's arrest in 2022. The case file then advanced to the criminal prosecution phase in the New York State judicial system. Ethan Caldwell's arrest in 2022 marked the transition of the Megan Carter case from the investigative phase to the criminal prosecution phase in the New York State judicial system. After the formal charges were filed, the case file was transferred to the court to prepare for the criminal trial on the charges related to Megan Carter's death. At trial, New York State prosecutors were tasked with presenting the entire body of evidence gathered during the reopened investigation to the jury. This evidence was organized into groups to demonstrate the chain of events on the night Megan Carter disappeared and the connection between the physical evidence and the defendant, Ethan Caldwell. A significant portion of the prosecution's presentation involved video camera data collected from multiple locations. Prosecutors first played surveillance footage from the restaurant in Ossining, where Megan Carter was recorded meeting Ethan Caldwell on the evening of April 14, 2015. This footage confirmed the two were together at this location before departing. Next, prosecutors presented footage from the bar in Tarrytown, where Megan and Ethan Caldwell were recorded appearing later that same evening. The video showed the two leaving the bar together around 9 p.m., establishing the last timestamp Megan Carter was seen at a public location. Prosecutors then presented traffic camera footage collected along the route from Yonkers to Bear Mountain State Park. Frames from multiple cameras showed the sedan registered to Megan Carter appearing at various points along the route during times consistent with her phone data. These video segments were arranged chronologically to illustrate the vehicle's travel path after Megan left the Tarrytown bar. In addition, prosecutors introduced the video analysis results from Bear Mountain State Park. In this footage, a human figure was recorded appearing near a trail area at night. The image analysis report prepared by New York State Police experts indicated the person's height in the video matched Ethan Caldwell's height. Alongside the video evidence, prosecutors presented the DNA examination results related to the jacket seized during the search of Ethan Caldwell's home. The forensic report showed Megan Carter's DNA was detected on the collar and front zipper areas of the jacket. This DNA profile was compared to the DNA profile generated from bone marrow samples of the skeletal remains found at Bear Mountain State Park, with results confirming a complete match between the two genetic datasets. Prosecutors presented the DNA findings as biological evidence linking Megan Carter to evidence recovered from Ethan Caldwell's residence. In addition to video and DNA evidence, prosecutors presented the reconstructed timeline of all events on the night Megan Carter disappeared. This timeline integrated data from surveillance cameras, phone records, and evidence collected during the investigation. The timestamps showed Megan Carter meeting Ethan Caldwell at the Ossining restaurant, then appearing with him at the Tarrytown bar, followed by her phone moving through the Yonkers area before the final signal was recorded at Bear Mountain State Park. Prosecutors argued that this chain of data demonstrated a continuous journey from locations where Megan was seen with Ethan Caldwell to the area where her remains were later discovered. Meanwhile, Ethan Caldwell's defense attorney countered the prosecution's arguments by questioning the directness of the presented evidence. The defense argued that much of the evidence in the file was circumstantial and that no direct eyewitness observed the commission of the crime. They also emphasized that the silhouette image in the Bear Mountain State Park video did not clearly identify the person in the frame. Furthermore, the defense contended that the presence of Megan Carter's DNA on the jacket did not automatically prove Ethan Caldwell caused her death, since Megan was confirmed to have met Ethan that evening and physical contact could have occurred prior to her disappearance. These arguments were made to persuade the jury that the evidence presented at trial was insufficient to prove Ethan Caldwell's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. When the prosecution and defense arguments concluded, the trial moved to the final stage of the proceedings. The jury was tasked with reviewing all evidence presented throughout the trial to reach a verdict. Under New York State criminal procedure, jurors were instructed by the judge on the legal standard to apply when evaluating evidence, including the principle that a defendant can only be convicted if the evidence proves guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. After receiving these instructions, the jury retired from the courtroom and was taken to the deliberation room to begin closed deliberations. In the deliberation room, jurors re-examined each piece of evidence presented during the trial. One of the first items reviewed was the sequence of surveillance camera footage related to the locations Megan Carter visited on the evening of April 14, 2015. Footage from the Ossining restaurant and Tarrytown bar confirmed that Megan Carter met Ethan Caldwell that evening and that the two left those locations together. This footage was viewed as establishing Ethan Caldwell as the last person seen with Megan Carter before she vanished. The jury then considered the traffic camera footage along the route from Yonkers to Bear Mountain State Park. Frames from multiple cameras showed the sedan registered to Megan Carter appearing at various points on this route during times consistent with her phone data. Jurors discussed how these images indicated Megan's vehicle traveled northward after she left the Tarrytown bar. Another key focus of the discussion was the Bear Mountain State Park video, recording a figure appearing near a trail area at night. The image analysis report indicated the person's height in the video fell within a range consistent with Ethan Caldwell. Although the video could not clearly identify the individual in the frame, the jury considered the silhouette analysis results as a factor to be weighed alongside other evidence in the file. In addition to video data, the jury reviewed the forensic examination results related to the jacket seized from Ethan Caldwell's home. The forensic lab report confirmed Megan Carter's DNA was detected on the collar and front zipper areas of the jacket. This DNA profile had been compared to DNA collected from bone marrow of the skeletal remains found at Bear Mountain State Park and confirmed to match. Jurors discussed the significance of this biological evidence in the context of the events on the night Megan Carter disappeared. Furthermore, the jury examined the reconstructed timeline of events built by cold case investigators. This timeline integrated data from surveillance cameras, phone records, and forensic evidence to describe the sequence of locations and timestamps related to Megan Carter's journey on the night she vanished. According to this timeline, Megan Carter met Ethan Caldwell at the Ossining restaurant, then went with him to the Tarrytown bar, after which her phone was recorded moving through the Yonkers area before the final signal appeared at Bear Mountain State Park, where her remains were discovered many years later. During deliberations, jurors also considered the defense arguments. Ethan Caldwell's attorney had emphasized that much of the evidence was circumstantial and that no direct eyewitness observed the crime being committed. They also questioned whether the presence of Megan Carter's DNA on the jacket could be explained by the two having met that evening. These arguments were intended to convince the jury that the evidence presented at trial was insufficient to prove Ethan Caldwell's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. However, During deliberations, jurors assessed that the evidence did not exist in isolation, but formed an interconnected chain. Surveillance footage confirmed Ethan Caldwell as the last person seen with Megan Carter. Phone data and traffic video showed Megan's vehicle traveling a route leading to Bear Mountain State Park. Park video analysis recorded the appearance of a person with height consistent with Ethan Caldwell in the area where remains were found, and DNA results linked Megan Carter to the jacket seized from Ethan Caldwell's residence. When all these elements were placed in context, jurors continued discussing whether this chain of evidence was sufficient to prove Ethan Caldwell's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. After an extended period of review and discussion in the deliberation room, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. Jurors then returned to the courtroom to announce their decision. When the trial resumed, the judge requested the jury foreperson to read the official verdict. In open court, the jury declared that the defendant Ethan Caldwell was guilty of the charges related to Megan Carter's death, including murder, mutilation of a corpse, and arson, based on the evidence presented throughout the trial. This verdict marked the conclusion of the criminal trial proceedings against Ethan Caldwell in the Megan Carter case. If you're interested in investigative true crime stories like the Megan Carter case and want to follow more solved cold case files, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you for watching today's story, and we'll see you in the next video with another case still full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered.